I encourage everybody to support KMTV as a
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. I want to welcome you to what we're calling ABC Time, a live podcast with Alexander Cummings of the Alternative National Congress. We've decided to do a monthly podcast so that people who support the ANC, who support Alexander Cummings, can hear from me, can get to know me better. We want to take your questions, comments, and suggestions through this medium. We felt it was important that we define ourselves for the Liberian people and for all supporters of the ANC. So today will be our first in a series. We plan to do this monthly. We plan to have topics continue, so some continuity from podcast to podcast. But more importantly, we want to also hear from you. In addition to you hearing from me, I want to hear from you again, comments, thoughts, suggestions on the way forward for our country, on the way forward for the ANC, and any personal suggestions you may have for me. We will do this broadcast from different settings and locations over time. Today, we are in my office in Monrovia on Old Road, where we have the Cummings Africa Foundation. It's a relatively small, modest office, but it works very well for us, and is where I spent quite a bit of time, and the other half of my time I spend at the party office. So perhaps at our next podcast, we will do it from the party office, but we'll sometimes do it in marketplaces, in neighborhoods, etc., etc. So look forward to ongoing interactions with me, where we can address current issues and hear from you. Today, I wanted to just start with a bit of biography, tell you a little about myself, where I grew up, a bit of my journey to this point, and I also want to talk a little bit about why I'm aspiring to serve our people. Why I'm aspiring to, one day become president of Liberia. But let me start by telling you about myself and who I am. So the Cummings family is primarily from Maryland County, but a part of the family also settled and grew up and lived in Tapeta, Nima County. So I claim roots in both of those counties. I was personally born in Monrovia at the old government hospital on Ashman Street. We grew up in Point Four, Bushwa Island, in that community, and lived there many years. I attended the Monrovia Demonstration Elementary School on Clay Street, where I got my elementary education, government elementary school. Then I attended CWA, the College of West Africa. And this will not come as a surprise. I thought it was the best high school in Liberia at the time. So anyway, I went to CWA, then I went to Cuttington. I left Cuttington after my first 2 years and finished undergraduate school in Illinois, in the United States, Northern Illinois University. I returned back to Liberia and worked at the Liberian Bank for Development and Investment, where I was a project analyst. I did that for 2 years, and then returned to graduate school, where I studied finance. I got an MBA in finance, and then I started my international business career, where I worked for 15 years with the Pillsbury Company, and then for almost 20 years with the Coca-Cola Company. In both of those roles, I was successful and did very well. At 36, I think I was perhaps the youngest officer at the Pillsbury Company when I assumed that role. And I was Vice President of Finance for Pillsbury International. I subsequently joined the Coca-Cola Company, ran the Coca-Cola business in Nigeria, which is a very big market. After that, I ran half of Africa from Nairobi. And then I ran all of Africa, initially from London, the United Kingdom, and then subsequently I ran the Africa group from Johannesburg, South Africa. And then my last 8 years at Coca-Cola, I was Executive Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer of the Coca-Cola Company. It was a global position where I had responsibilities for almost all of the company's functions globally. So a quite significant major role at that company. For point of reference, the Coca-Cola Company market value on the New York Stock Exchange is over 200 billion United States dollars. And so I was very blessed, fortunate as a Liberian to have achieved that level of success. I often joke and say to people, it wasn't my father's company. I had to earn that level of achievement, and I'm very, very proud of that fact that that did occur. But I also say though that many other Liberians, given the same opportunity, would have done as well or would have done better. And so I don't take for granted the fact that I had the opportunity, but I did take advantage of it. I did seize the opportunity. And I did myself, my family, and our country proud in the execution of all of the roles I've had throughout my career. On the personal side, my mother is still alive. She's 92 years old, almost 93. I have two sisters. I lost my younger sister, unfortunately, 2 years ago. I'm married to Teresa. We've been married for 37 years. We have two young adult children. My daughter, Ayo, who's a teacher, an actor, and my son, Boykai, who's a business person. And Boykai is married, and we have three grandchildren, Naya, one Kemi, and Zokaya, our three grandkids. So that's a bit on the personal side. So that's a bit of my biography, if you will. And when we get to Q&A, if you have any questions, please let us have it, and we'll address it on that topic. The other topic I wanted to cover today was, why do I want to serve our country? Why am I aspiring to lead Liberia? And I always start answering that question by saying, because I've been incredibly blessed in life. And I don't believe God blessed me the way He did to keep those blessings just for myself, and not to help the country of my birth, the country I care for and love so much. And my first blessing actually is, I believe, to be a Liberian, something I'm very, very, very proud of. I've had other blessings. I mentioned I've worked in several countries around the world. I've held several significant roles where I've gained experiences. I've worked with all kinds of nationalities around the world. I competed well, I did well, and I think I can bring these experiences to bear to help transform our country. But most importantly, I care deeply for Liberia and for Liberians. And I believe as a people, we deserve a better Liberia. I believe we as a people are better than the country we have. And I think working together, we can change Liberia for the benefit of all Liberians. And that is my passion. That is my goal. I keep saying to people who support me, come and join this cause, come and join this movement for the transformation of Liberia. If you're joining this movement, if you're joining this cause because you want to come and chop, because you want to come and play big shot, because you want it to be a time, I'm the wrong person to follow. We want to do this because we want people who want to work, who believe in Liberia and Liberians, and who want to work to transform Liberia for the benefit of all Liberians. There are a few things I think that have impacted our country. And after 172 years, I think there are a few fundamental things that have contributed significantly to why we are where we are. The first thing I talk about is this thing we call corruption or economic crimes. And this has been with us since the beginning of our country. And unless we're prepared to do what it takes to significantly reduce corruption and to punish economic crimes, Liberia will continue to struggle. We will continue to be amongst the poorest countries in the world. The second thing we have to change fundamentally in our country is we have to make sure that every Liberian has access to opportunities. We should not limit access to opportunity based on tribe, based on who you know, based on where you're from. Every Liberian has to feel they have access to the opportunities of our country. You know, I describe opportunities as this bowl of rice we all eat from. And part of the reason why Liberia is where it is that over the history of our country, we've limited access to that bowl of rice. Whether it was the Congo people first, or maybe the Crown people when Doe was president, or now if you're not a sedition, every Liberian has to feel they have a right to the opportunities our country offers. There should be only two constraints that limit how much of that rice or that fufu you can eat. One is you gotta follow the rules. We cannot have a country where we don't reward good behavior and we don't punish bad behavior. Everybody has to follow the rules. And if you follow the rules, you will have access to the opportunities our country offers. The second thing that may limit how much of that rice or fufu you eat is your willingness to work. If you work hard, you will eat a lot of the rice. If you're lazy, you will eat very little of the rice. So if you follow the rules and you work hard, you will consume a lot of the rice. If you don't follow the rules, we will not give you access. And if you follow the rules and you're lazy, you will not eat much. But every Liberian has to believe and have to see that we're not limiting the access to the opportunities our country offers. I'm very passionate about that. Then we also got to figure out how to work together as a people. This is something we struggle to do. Yeah, you know, we have a winner takes all mentality. We always try to prove the other person wrong. And we got to work on changing this mentality. This is why, you know, we've established the collaborating political parties, CPP. This is why I think it's important for us to figure out how we can make this work. How we can take a collection of independent parties and collaborate in the interests of our country and of our people. And so it'll be difficult, it'll be tough. You know, if the expectation was that, you know, we'll just announce it and we'll have this kumbaya movement where everything will agree will be perfect, that was naive. Collaboration takes time, it takes effort, we're gonna have disagreements, we're gonna storm, but we gotta be determined to get through those difficult periods, build trust, and then hold together, because it's not only important for us to have collaboration to win elections. That's how we should govern our country. We should have a government of inclusion, where as many people are under the tent, because transforming our country will be difficult. It will require a lot of choices, and the more people in the tent who can explain to the various constituencies why we're doing what we're doing, why we're making the choices we're making, it'll make it easier to fundamentally change and transform our country, which is what we should all want. We should all want to be proud of this country we call Liberia. We should all want to feel we have access to the opportunities of our country. We should all want to see our country developed. But I can say to you for free, it will not happen because we say so or because I say so. It will not happen because we wish it. It will happen because we work for it, because we're determined to get it, because we care for our country, because we love our country, and we care for and we love each other. But bottom line is, we gotta do the work, we gotta have the discipline, we gotta have the focus if we want to change Liberia. Two other things I like to share, and I like to share this at this moment. One is, I say this all the time and I will keep repeating it, and I think it's resonating because it happens to be true. And this is not an Alex Cummings saying, this is actually Albert Einstein, the famous genius scientist. You cannot keep doing the same things and expect different results. Doing the same things and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. And we're all sane people, we're all smart people, and I say to you, I say to all Liberians, we cannot keep doing the same things and expect different results. We cannot keep electing people with a similar kind of experiences that we had in the past and expect different results. We cannot keep selecting people with the same style and approach that we have in the past and expect things to change. We have to do many things differently in our individual lives and in our national lives if we want to change Liberia. And so I need all of us to understand that we gotta do many things fundamentally different to move Liberia from where it is, from where we all want it to be. The other thing I like to say, and I enjoy saying all the time, is the best predictor of future performance and future behavior is past performance and past behavior. So if somebody has been good in the past, if they've delivered results on a consistent basis, if they've managed large complex organizations in the past, they're likely to do it in the future. If they have not done that, or if they were bad, or whatever, they are likely to do the same thing in the future. Very strong correlation between what behaviors and performance in the past and behaviors and performance in the future. Nothing will change all of a sudden because you elect that person a senator, or you elect that person a representative, or you appoint that person to a minister, a deputy minister, or whatever it is. If they have not performed in the past, they are unlikely to perform in the future. If they were corrupt in the past, they're likely to be corrupt in the future. And of course, there are no perfect human beings. I'm not perfect, and we're not looking for perfection. But these fundamental truths pervades the world. And as Liberians, we need to understand that. And as we choose leaders, whether it's in your local organization, Healthcare Workers Association, Teachers Association, whatever association you have, various county associations, as you pick your leaders, look at past behavior, past performance, not superficially, right? And again, collectively, think about what you want to do different to move that organization ahead. In your personal life, if you get up every day and you do the same thing you did yesterday, the outcomes today and tomorrow will be the same. If you want something to happen different in your personal life, you got to do something different to deliver a different outcome. And so as we think about our national interests, I want us to think along those lines as well. And then my other favorite saying, and those of you who follow me, you've heard this before, but we'll keep repeating that because they happen to be true, and I believe that, is the best way to predict the future. The best way to predict the future is to create it. If you want a good outcome in the future, you have to work today to create that future you want. If you to predict that future you want, the best way to do it is to do the work today to create the future you want to have for yourself, for your family, for your organization, and certainly for Liberia. And I believe that working together with a common goal and objective, we can create the future we want for our country. So I'm going to stop now, and to the extent we have questions, we'll take them. Attorney Mariah Yakula is here with me, and she will read our questions, comments, and all suggestions. And if there aren't any, then there are a few more areas I can touch on again in this first podcast.
Okay, we have a few questions. So one of the questions from Hamilton Tape, he says, you're talking about Liberians working together, but you were invited by government many times to discuss national issues and you never took part.
just to correct the presupposition, if you will, I was invited twice, not many times. Important we get the facts right. And the first time I was not invited personally, but the political party was invited, ANC, as well as the other parties were invited to a forum here in Liberia. The ANC was very well represented at that event by the chairman of the party and other officers of the party. So again, facts are important, and allegations and assertions gotta be based on facts. So not many, only two, and the first one the party was represented, but I was not in the country for the first event. But we made sure the party was represented and presented, I think, very, very well at that event. The second one was the more recent dialogue, economic dialogue. And again, the invitation actually came at the last moment. I had made plans to be away from the country. I want to remind Liberians, and I want to remind Hamilton, who asked this question, that I sometimes have to travel because I still do some work. I do consulting, I sit on boards, a generous income that I can bring back to Liberia to invest, to fund the political activities we have. So I don't go on vacation, if you will. And so my calendar has to be planned well in advance because I have these commitments that I have to keep for many, many reasons, economic and otherwise. And so the last invitation, I couldn't attend because, again, it came at the last minute. I, however, sent very specific and detailed recommendations on how we can revive the economy of Liberia. And we will put it, if it's not already out, we'll put it on the ANC website. It's there for you to see and read. So we did not just decline the opportunity because we had to travel. We actually responded and sent very detailed and specific recommendations. Let me also say though, while I think having an economic dialogue is not a bad thing to do, and I'm glad it was held, but after almost 2 years in office, we shouldn't be having this conversation. We elected a government that should have known what they wanted to do when they took over, should have had these solutions, and our economy should be moving ahead as we speak, right? So I think we should be disappointed that almost 2 years in, we're having a dialogue about what to do to revive the economy. Having said that, it wasn't a bad idea, it was a good thing, but these are the reasons why I wasn't there. And again, it wasn't many, it was two. The first one was not specific to individuals, it was to a political party, and we were represented, and I just explained why I couldn't be at the recent economic dialogue.
Okay, so the other question is from Javon. He says, "Leaders eat last" is one of my favorite lines from you. Could you explain that in a layman's term?
Yeah, I thank you for that question. And there's actually a book that I encourage you to go and find and download and read. It talks about leadership, and leaders eat last. And when I first, made that comment, people interpreted eating in the Liberian context, meaning let other people steal first and then you steal last. And of course, that was not and I'm glad you want me to put in layman's terms. But what it means is that as a leader, right, if you are the first, so the example I let you is you go to a buffet, and the ANC and actually many political parties, you have meetings and you have food at the end. And typically there's a buffet, table and people go eat. As a leader, when you go first ahead of people, with a send the head table first, eat first. You don't care if there's enough food left for all of your followers, all of your supporters, all of your partisans, because you're not eating your stomach full. And if the rice finish, or the gravy finish, or the plantain finish, or the soup finish, your stomach full. You don't care. The ideal leader is last, is to say, and we do that at the ANC. We make sure everybody eat first, because as the leader, when you gotta eat last, you make sure there's enough food for everybody to eat. So we, the leadership of the party, we are wait. We'll let anybody we invite to the meeting, let them all eat and make sure they're fed. Then we get up and we go get our food. And that's a way of assuring that there's enough food for everybody to eat that are attending the occasion you're having. And what that means for the country is that we want servant leaders. We want people who want to come to serve the Liberian people. We want to take care of our people, their basic needs, make sure, the schools are operating and make sure we're paying people first before we pay ourselves, our leaders. We want to make sure the civil servants are getting their salaries. But we want to take care of the people first. That's gotta be, we want this concept of servant leadership, right? Liberians elect us to serve them. They are our bosses. And so I use that analogy to say people who want to support the ANC, who want to support Alexander Cummings, come with that mentality. We're coming to serve our people, to change our country so that everybody can benefit. Yes, we will pay people their salaries. They will get compensated for the work they do, but that's it. You're entitled to no more, except for fair pay for fair work to serve our people. Government service should be a special calling. Yes, in the context of Liberia, the government is the biggest employer, and something we need to change over time. The private sector needs to be the biggest employer. So we need to pay people living wage, fair wage. But beyond that, you should expect nothing else. And you should want to come and serve our people, and you want to put our people first. It also applies to this concept of customer service, right? If people are coming to get their license, to pay their taxes, to get their passports, there should be processes. People who are serving them should be polite, you should take care of them. Again, the concept of servant leadership. And so thank you for the opportunity to try to make that simple for people, the concept of leaders eat last.
Okay. So another question we have here is from Jesse Pillow. He says, and he's from the Front Page Africa Live, please ask him about the interview he did recently about what he said of being president only. Why, if the CPP doesn't carry him as presidential candidate in 2023? But hold on to that, because there are also similar questions. One is specifically to that interview. The other question is from Vasco Sumo from the ANC Global Live. He says, my question is, if he's not the head of the CP of the coalition, will he support the head of the ticket? Stephen Gorter also asked similar questions. So those three in one.
So first of all, the interview referred to was done, I believe, in 2016. It was prior to the last election. And I know people dig things up and they repost it or they put it up there to try to make a point. But if there's a date file or a date code on the tape, you will see it happened well prior to the last election. And so the context was very different from where we are today. And you should also listen to the question. Let's not be superficial here about these things. Listen to how the question was asked and then listen to the response. And for various reasons, people jump to conclusions they want to jump. So again, I want to put the interview in context, and don't take my word for it. Go and look it up. You will see when it was done, and also listen to the question, and then listen to my answer, and you will see the context was very different. But to answer the question now, we are in the process of putting together a framework for how the collaboration will work. Part of that framework will determine how both for senatorial race or representative race or for the presidential race, what that process is. When we sign up to that process, because we are part of that negotiation, we'll agree what that process is. When we sign up to that process, and when that process, and I believe it will be, but when and if that process is conducted free, fair, transparent, and by the way, we will publish what the process is. It will not be a secret. We will publish the framework for every Liberian to see. But if that framework is executed, if that process is followed, and the outcome of that process is that somebody else leads the collaboration, we, the ANC, will support the outcome of that process. So key is that we define the process we sign up to, and the process is executed the way it's intended, free, fair. And again, Liberians will know what the process is and will make their own judgment on whether it's executed free and fair. But if that happens and the outcome is somebody else, yes, I will support the outcome of that process.
Okay, so you have another question from Adrian Russell. He says, are you willing, if you're elected president, to persecute those closest to you? And are you willing to cut the budget of the president's office?
So the answer is yes to both, but again, let's just be clear. The reason why, and I mentioned in my opening remarks, that economic crimes, this thing called corruption, or just to put in layman's terms, stealing, is one of the primary reasons, if not the primary reasons, why Liberia is where it is. And that, of course, continues to tell today. I mean, it's egregious. And if I'm not prepared to punish any and everybody, close to me or not, then Liberians shouldn't support me. Because if we don't fix that problem fundamentally, we will not change or transform our country. So the direct answer to your question, yes. And I will say to those who are close to me, their families, their relatives, the Liberian people, don't come and beg. When we catch your father, your mother, your sister, your brother, your cousin stealing Liberian people money, because we will punish them. And we'll not just fire them, by the way. We will prosecute them. We will put them in jail. We will seize the assets they stole from Liberian people. And don't come and say, oh, they may help you get elected. He was there from the beginning. You knew his mother, you knew his sister, he got family to support, he got children. You'll help me, you'll help us. Let's not do that. People should know, and everybody who's close to me, I'm saying to you now, don't use your proximity to me to steal from Liberian people. Don't come support me because you want to chop. Because yes, we will punish people that do that. With regards to the office of the president, what I will promise Liberian people, there will be transparency in exactly how much money is allocated to the presidency and how that money is used. And if it needs to be reduced, we'll reduce it. But Liberians need to know transparency is key for all items in the budget, by the way, not just the presidency. But the president got to set the example, right? If we want to audit the legislature, and they don't allow us to today, then we got to allow the president's office to be audited. If we want transparency in every facet of the national budget, then the presidency have to make sure Liberians know where that money is being spent. And if we need to reduce that money because it's not a priority and something else is a priority, that's what we'll do. You see, the way we should be developing our budget should be based on the outcomes we want to achieve, the results we want to achieve. And those results will drive where the money should be allocated or spent. So if we say agriculture is important, then when you look at the budget, you should see more money going to agriculture than say to something else, whatever else it might be, right? You have to make choices because we can't fix everything. We can't do everything at the same time. So budget should be based on priorities, results, outcomes you want, and you allocate accordingly, appropriately. But the other thing I want Liberians to start thinking about is we gotta grow this budget. You know, we spend a lot of time talking about the same pot of money, $400 million, $500 million, right? And yes, that's all we have now, and we gotta manage it and allocate it efficiently. But we gotta begin to think expansively. So how do we take that money from 400 million to 700 million to 1 billion, so on and so forth? We gotta figure out what are the driving revenue sources, and we should allocate time and money there so it can become self-fulfilling, it can drive it, so we can grow. Because I can tell you for free, if that money is still $400 million, we'll not be able to do much. So we will be more efficient in allocating what we have. If the presidency doesn't need to spend the money, we'll not spend it. But the priority has to be to grow the economic pie, to grow the national budget so we can have the resources to invest in and develop our country.
Okay. Musa Boy Kamara asked, wrote along by the end, he said, what can you do now that can advance the economic interest of Liberians, thus encouraging investors to come and boost our economy?
So I'm glad that question was asked, and I would take some time to explain, and I hope people get it and understand. And there's a question of what I can do as an individual, as a private citizen, and then it's a question of what we can do as a country and what the government should be doing. Let me first of all remind Liberians that investors have a choice of where to put their money. They do not have to bring it to Liberia. We are competing with our neighboring countries and many other countries for the investment dollars. What does that mean? They have a choice of taking their money to Sierra Leone, to Guinea, to Ivory Coast, to Ghana, to Nigeria, to Kenya, and that's just in Africa. They can take it to Asia, they can take it to Latin America. So people that make their money, corporations, investors, they have choices of where to make their money. That's the first thing everybody needs to understand. Secondly, people will invest their money. Remember, these are people hard-earned money. 99.9% of the kinds of investors we want to attract earn this money over a long period of time. They earn it the hard way. You know, I often say, I digress a little bit, that many Liberians know how to spend money. Many of us don't know how to make it. And part of that because we haven't given ourselves the opportunity, our pure opportunity. So to know, and when you make your own money, you spend it differently than when you get it for free. It's human nature. So the investors we're trying to attract make their money the hard way. They will put their money in countries, and they have choices where to put their money. They will put it in countries where they have confidence in the government and in the country. And so when the government cannot explain how they use their own money, like the 25 million mop up, or the 16 billion Liberian dollars that the accounting for is still questionable. When the government interferes in the judicial branch of government, because as an investor, when you bring your money in, you want to make sure there's an independent judiciary. So if you have dispute with a Liberian or another foreign investor, or with the government, you want to make sure the court system will adjudicate in a fair way. You don't want a court system where you think the president or some minister can pick up the phone, call the judge, and adjudicate against you. If those conditions do not exist, I am sorry, my fellow Liberians, people will not bring their money yet. No matter what Alice Cummings says or does, these are people's personal money. The conditions have to exist. The environment have to exist. When you look at the recommendations and the papers we prepared for the economic dialogue, the first thing we said has to happen is we have to restore confidence in the country, in the economy, in the government, in the actions, if you want to have foreign investors come. We should ask ourselves, why is Sam Dybie cutting back and leaving? They're already here. Why is Firestone reducing? Why are many other small businesses leaving? There's a reason why. And when you're an outside investor and you're looking for where to invest, if other people are coming and encouraging you to come, but if the people who are there already are leaving, you're not going to bring your hard-earned money, particularly when you got choices of where to put your money. For myself personally, I'm an investor in some businesses in Liberia. I'm leery to make those public because I'm afraid they will be punished. I have partners who I'm in business with in our country. They create jobs. They're not big businesses, but we create jobs and that kind of stuff. But making that public, given the current environment we have, they will try to tax them. They will make it hard for them to get their stuff to the ports, etc., etc., etc. And so I'm very careful not to put my partners at risk. in terms of my personal investments. But I also want to say, though, as a family, we do a lot of philanthropy in Liberia. We give me the paper. It's okay. This is any formal podcast. We do a lot of philanthropy in Liberia. We do scholarships. We sponsor. We subsidize very heavily a STEM school here in Liberia. We have put computer labs in University of Liberia, AMEU University, St. Clements, and other institutions. So we do a lot on an ongoing basis to help Liberia and Liberians. But again, as a private citizen, as only one person, one family, there's only so much I can do. I can't solve the problems of Liberia all alone, all by myself. And so, Mariah giving me questions here. And so we do what we can. We try to encourage others to come and invest. But unless we fix these structural problems, it doesn't matter what I say, what you say, what anybody else say. People will not bring their heart and money when they have other alternatives unless we restore confidence in our government, in our country, in our institutions. These are just facts. These are not Alex Cummings facts. The last thing I'll say to answer this question in terms of what we're doing, we're the lead sponsor of Entrepreneurship Summit we want to have in November 14 and 15 here in Liberia. We're trying to find other institutions and other individuals to come and join us because we want to have a summit where we can encourage Liberian entrepreneurship, where we provide master classes to teach young entrepreneurs how to build a business plan, how to market your business on social media, etc., etc. We'll do workshops. And we have experts, some successful Liberian business people, some from the outside to come and conduct these master classes and these workshops. We're also going to have a competition at the end where we'll make a fund available where businesses can come and compete for a small amount of working capital to help them move their business ahead, move their business forward. And so it will be a competition. Those of you who know Shark Tank, is something along those lines where people come to make a pitch, and then we'll pick winners, and then the winners will get some money to go ahead and help facilitate their business. So we're doing as much as we can as an individual. We're trying to rally others to help us in that effort in terms of job creation, in terms of economic growth. But as a private citizen, as an individual, there's only so much I can do to help, and we'll do our best to help our country as best we can.
Okay, so Yankuba Kamara says, can you please ask him why he doesn't want to serve in any position except the presidency?
First of all, let me say that there are many important jobs in government and outside of government. And I think we all spend too much time focusing on government and on the executive branch of government specifically, when we should be thinking about not only all branches of government, but how we transform all facets of our society, civil society, church, the mosque, all of these institutions. We need to make sure we're thinking holistically about the transformation of our country. When I said I wanted to serve our country, to lead our country, I said, look, the most impactful job to transform and to change our country is the presidency. If you want to impact all 4.6 million Liberians, that's the job you want to do it through. Doesn't mean the other jobs are not important, right? And it doesn't mean that there are not other ways to serve. But I want to impact all Liberians. Now, the question is somewhat hypothetical because we're not at the stage where decision needs to be made about a different role, another role. And by the way, Liberians who are listening here, you don't enter a competition to come in second, third, or fourth. You enter a competition to win. If you go into a basketball tournament with your team, you enter to win the tournament. You don't enter to become runner-up or to come third place. If you go in a race, sprint or long distance race, You enter the race to win. You don't enter the race to come in second, third. I can say to you individually your careers, if you start already going in, planning to come in second or third, you will come in second, third, or even fourth. I can say you that personal experience, watching around the world, watching organizations, watching, you're going to win. And if you don't win, if the circumstances change, then you deal with the outcome at that point in time. But to go into it, to start having this discussion about, take another role, that kind of stuff, that's where we end up, right? In the end, it may happen. We may end up there. But the goal has to be, your aspiration has to be to win. And then when the eventuality happens, because the people go a different way or you're not successful, then you deal with it, then you make choices at that point in time. And that would be my response to what is somewhat a hypothetical question.
Okay. Wallo BK wants to know what action has the ANC taken against the ANC candidate who refused to withdraw and is currently running in Cape Mount?
So the ANC, we're trying to build an institution. We have trying to execute our processes for how we handle what just happened with the candidate. There's an ethics and compliance committee that is working now to decide the outcome of what happens to Simon Taylor, who refused. There will be consequences. I can tell you that for now. I cannot predict what the committee will recommend, what those consequences will be, but there will be consequences. They will not be for free. But this is not the kind of party we want to build where I will come and decide this is what he did and I unilaterally decide this is your punishment. We're trying to build an institution. We're trying to put processes and systems in place. It takes time to do it, particularly in the context of our country and our environment, but we're determined to put processes in place. And I promise you that we've appointed a committee, is actually led by one of the lawyers in our county. It's a 5-man committee that is looking at this. They will come with the recommendations, I believe, next week. And there will be some consequences. And again, I will not predict, that would be unfair to the committee, what those consequences will be.
Aaron Shapolu wants to know, what is your plan for agriculture?
So again, if it's my personal plan or plan if we're fortunate to assume leadership of our country, from a policy perspective, if you will, agriculture has to be the backbone of the economy of Liberia. So if you look at the Ivory Coast, the reason why they can withstand the ups and downs of the world economy, many reasons why they're further ahead of us, but they have an agro-based economy, and we need to develop that in Liberia. Ghana, today earns over $2 billion from cocoa exports. Nigeria, of course, a very big country, but they earn over $13 billion from cassava exports. So we need to be focusing on agriculture as a country. And what does that mean? Means we gotta put the resources necessary. Farmers need money, financing. They need to know they have a ready market for the outputs. We need to make sure we got roads, farm to market roads. We need to make sure we got training for our farmers, fertilizers. The agriculture extension services need to be revitalized. We need to do all those things to make sure we revitalize the agriculture industry. As an individual, I do not have a farm I own. I'm an investor in a farm. But again, I want to remind Liberians that I'm one citizen of this country who, yes, I have aspirations to serve our country, but I can only do so much. We only do so much with the limited resources I have. My resources are not unlimited. Because those resources are hard-earned over many years of work and toil, I have to spend it prudently. I will not spend it, get bankrupt, and then we just look at each other. Nobody can help each other. That is not who I am, and that is not what you will get from me. But I believe in agriculture. As I say, I'm an investor with some other partners in an agro-based type business. I probably said too much now. People will start to research what that is, and I probably put those people in trouble. But that's the extent to which I'm personally invested in agriculture. You got to know your area, right? I'm not an expert in that area, and I'm partnering with people who are. So my personal, and then what we should be thinking about as a government in the future.
Sekou Azumana doesn't have a question, but he's appealing to you to please stop knocking the table because the mic is sensitive and his ear is ringing.
I'm so sorry. I talk with my hands, and in fact, I've been advised that sometimes that's not only the noise, Sekou, but it can be distracting. So I will put my hand under the table. How about that?
Okay, so Patrick Kennedy wants to know what is your plans for the health sector?
Yeah, so the way to think about the health sector, again, I want to emphasize that we can't fix everything on day one. We'll fix health. I will tell you what we should do in health, right? And we got to make choices. And even though we need to fix health, education, infrastructure, the list goes on and on. Even within those various sectors, right, we got to make choices, right? Because if you got 10 things wrong, and you try to fix all 10 at the same time, you will do none well, and you will have 10 unhappy people. If you got 10 things wrong and you say, look, we'll focus on these 3 or 4, at least we'll have 3 or 4 happy people because you will do it well, you will get results, and hopefully you can explain to the other 6 people why you're not getting to them right away, right? So within health, we got to make choices. So what kills 70-80% of Liberian people? And this is in no particular order, but these things is what cause most deaths in our country. So in no particular order: childbirth, malaria, typhoid, hypertension, diarrhea, and maybe I'm missing one. But those are what kills most Liberians. So we need to focus on those things, and the way you do it is through what they call primary health care. So meaning you want to have a lot of well-equipped clinics around the country. You want to train many midwives and nurses, because oftentimes treating those diseases don't require doctors. You need to train doctors too, but it takes a long time to train doctors, right? So we need to do that. But you can train midwives quicker, you can train nurses quicker. So you need to have those, and focusing on make sure the clinics are well-equipped, the medication is there, etc., and you begin to impact those diseases, again, childbirth, diarrhea, malaria, hypertension, so on and so forth. You begin to impact 80% of what kills our people, and that needs to be the focus, right? Then we'll get to more complicated things, training doctors, making sure our referral hospitals are well equipped for cancer and for heart problems and liver problems, etc. We will get to those things. They are not unimportant, but again, you got to make choices. You got to start somewhere, and primary health care has to be the focus. Okay. So let's take a few more and
yes, we're almost
and wrap it
time. So I didn't write the name, but one said the ANC performance in past election was somewhat embarrassing. It reflects failure in the party. What have you, as the leader, done to mitigate such failure, and what is the restructuring that has been done to address the poor performance? Lastly, what is the prospect for the ANC in the coming elections?
So yes, we did not perform well in the 2017 election, and I, as the leader, I'm embarrassed by that performance. But let me qualify that though, because it's important that we do. First of all, the ANC is one of the youngest parties in the country, and 2017 was our first national elections. We had won Senate seat in 2014, Senator Daniel Nathan, who's a senator, but this was our first soccer game in the playoffs, if you will. First football game in the playoffs, right? So we had a lot of learnings. I have to say though, from where we started to where we end, although we didn't win seats in the legislature, the party actually did quite well, right? Nobody expected us to gather as many votes as we did. Nobody expected us to have placed where we placed. So I'm not making excuses. We didn't achieve the results we want to achieve. I'm personally embarrassed by that. But I also don't want to negate the hard work of many ANC partisans. in a relatively short period of time to get us from a relatively new party to now we are a national party. We are today the fastest growing political party in Liberia. We're not the biggest yet, but we're the fastest growing political party in Liberia, and we're making progress. We went to a convention and we made some leadership changes, and I would never cast aspersions at any of our past leaders. They all worked hard, they did well, and they all gracefully agreed for a transition. So now we have a mix of some new leaders and some of the former leaders. So I think we have a good mix. And as I said, it was a very graceful transition that we were able to manage. And I'm proud of that. The ANC is proud of that. Oftentimes when these things happen, nobody wants to give up the leadership. And when they are forced out, they get on the radio, they castigate the party, they do all of these things. We were able to make changes in our party in a matured way. I think we set a different bar, a different standard. And I'm grateful to our former leaders for the maturity with which they worked with us to make these changes. They are all, almost to a person, still involved in the party, still actively engaged in the party, and are still contributing to the party's future success. And that's why, again, I believe we're the fastest growing party in Liberia, and I believe we'll continue to be the fastest growing party because of the changes we're able to engineer, to make, reflecting on the lessons from 2017. There are other political parties in our country who have not done that, right? And you know who they are, and they know who they are. But I'm proud of the fact that we acknowledge the challenges we had, the mistakes we made, we owned it. We also acknowledge from where we came and the progress we made, and we're very proud of that. But now we look ahead. Can't do anything about yesterday, but we can affect today and tomorrow. And I'm proud of the fact we're the fastest growing party, and I believe we'll continue to be the fastest growing party in Liberia. And at some point, we'll catch up, with the biggest party over time.
Okay, well, we're out of time. I guess that's it for the questions. You can conclude.
Sure. So thank you, Mariah, and I want to thank the various camera people, press people here. This is our first podcast, so there was a lot of noise in the background, but we're figuring it out. We'll get better. I will practice not using my hands too much and making noise. It was a good suggestion that came. And again, this is just the beginning. I want to thank you all for your questions. We will do this at least once a month, maybe more often depending on what's happening in the country, but at least once a month. So you can hear my voice, you can ask your questions, you can hear it from me, you can get the facts. I will promise you, we will always give you the facts. We will tell you the truth. We will admit when we're wrong, because we want to have a transparent a relationship of integrity with our supporters and with the Liberian people. So thank you. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll do it from different locations, around the country, and we'll focus on various topics to open up, and then we'll take questions. So thank you. God bless, and have a good weekend.